I am to be executed at dawn. It is a fitting end, I suppose, to die in the cold light of the sun I have spent 10 millennia defending. My hand, once steady enough to decapitate a daemon prince in a single stroke, now trembles as it guides this quill. The ink is black, but the truth it carries is golden, heavy, and poisonous. I am Atheon. Once I was a shield captain of the Adeptus Custodes, a golden guardian of the master of mankind. Now the high lords call me a traitor, my brothers call me a heretic, but I know the truth, and that is a weight far greater than the adamantium plate I once wore. For 10,000 years we have told ourselves a beautiful lie. We stood in the Sanctum Imperialis, listening to the subsonic thrum of the Golden Throne, and told ourselves it was the sound of a god's heart. We inhaled the thick, cloying incense and believed it masked the scent of divinity. We looked upon the withered skeletal remains of our father and saw a sacrificial king. How fragile we are, even we, the genetically perfected. We need the lie to breathe. We need the myth to keep the darkness of the warp at bay. But 3 weeks ago, the lie shattered for me, and I have been bleeding ever since. It began during a standard midnight inspection. The palace was silent, save for the rhythmic chanting of the tech priests and the distant, agonizing groan of the throne's life support mechanisms. I was leading a squad of 4 through Section 8, Junction 27B, a deep-shadowed undercarriage of the great machine. That was when I saw it, a single drop of fluid clinging to a cooling pipe. It wasn't oil. It wasn't the gray, stagnant runoff of the palace vents. It was thick, viscous, and it glowed with a terrifying inner radiance. Golden blood, fresh. The Emperor has not bled since the Siege of Terra. His veins are dust, his heart is a memory. And yet, there it was. I did not report it. My conditioning screamed at me to raise the alarm, to call the Captain General, to summon the Magos Biologus. But a deeper, older instinct, the one that makes us more than just biological automatons, forced me to silence. I wiped the droplet away with my glove and felt a heat so intense it nearly scorched through the synth fabric. The following night, I returned alone. I bypassed the security wards using codes I had earned through centuries of blood and service. I didn't go back to the leak. I went deeper. I found an access hatch hidden behind a statue of a forgotten hero from the Unification Wars. It led to tunnels that were not on any map, passages carved into the very bedrock of the Himalayan mountains before the first Space Marine was ever conceived. The air here was different. It tasted of ozone, copper, and something ancient. Something hungry. As I descended, the golden sigils began to appear. They weren't imperial. They were a chaotic, beautiful blend of Eldari runes, Necron script, and geometries that defied human logic. And they were seeping. The walls were weeping that same golden ichor. At level 66, I reached a door of matte black metal that seemed to drink the light from my torch. It didn't open for a key. It opened for my blood. When I pressed my thumb to the sensor, the door hissed open, revealing a chamber that shouldn't exist. It was a cathedral of void and light. In the center stood a sarcophagus of shifting obsidian, and inside was the nightmare that has unmade me. It was not a corpse. It was a being caught in the act of a violent celestial birth. One half was the Emperor of the Murals, perfect, radiant, a face of carved marble and infinite wisdom. But the other half, it was a writhing mass of raw warp stuff, exposed sinew that glowed like a dying star, and eyes that were windows into a dimension of madness. It was half god, half abomination. Atheon, a voice spoke. It didn't come from the mouth. It vibrated in my marrow. It was the sound of 1 billion souls screaming in unison, softened into a whisper. You have found the womb of the new age. I fell to my knees, not in worship, but because my legs could no longer support the weight of my soul. The Emperor, the real Emperor, was not just sitting on a throne above. He was here, beneath the crust of the earth, transforming into something that would either save humanity or consume it entirely.
I did not leave that sublevel as the same man who entered it. Climbing back toward the surface, every step in my auric plate felt like a penance. The armor, once a symbol of my ultimate purpose, now felt like a gilded cage designed to keep the truth from leaking out. I reached my quarters, the silence of the custodian barracks pressing against my ears like a physical weight. For days I performed my duties as a ghost might, haunting the corridors of the imperial palace. I stood vigil by the sanctum doors, watching the high lords and the desperate pilgrims, and I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them that their god was screaming too, not in pain, but in the agony of becoming something else. The breaking point came during the feast of the Emperor's Ascension. The air in the throne room was thick with the prayers of 10,000 priests. As shield captain, I stood at the very foot of the dais, so close to the golden throne that I could feel the heat radiating from the life support vents. Everyone else saw a desiccated corpse, a silent anchor for the soul of humanity, but I saw the flicker. I saw a patch of black, oily skin manifest on the neck of the Emperor, pulsing with a light that didn't belong to this world. It was the same shadow I had seen in the sarcophagus below. The transformation was accelerating, spilling out from the hidden depths and onto the throne itself. "It is a lie!" The words tore from my throat before I could stop them. My voice, amplified by my helm's vox grill, shattered the rhythmic chanting of the choir. "The throne is not a tomb. It is a shell. He is changing, and we are guarding the monster he is becoming." The silence that followed was more violent than any explosion. My brothers, men I had bled with for centuries, turned their guardian spears toward me in a single fluid motion. There was no hesitation, no doubt. To them, I was a biomechanical error, a glitch in the Emperor's design. I was seized, my weapons stripped, my golden plates dented by the very hands that had once clasped my pauldrons in brotherhood. I expected a quick death. I welcomed it. But as they dragged me to the black cells, the crowd of priests didn't look horrified. They looked hungry, as if they wanted to feast on my heresy. I spent an eternity in the dark. Time has no meaning in the cells beneath the palace. There is only the hum of the earth and the distant rhythmic throb of the throne. I waited for the executioner, but instead the door hissed open to reveal Trajan Valoris himself. The Captain General did not look at me with hatred. He looked at me with a weary, terrible pity. "You think you are the first, Atheon?" he asked, his voice like grinding stone. "You think you stumbled upon a secret that we, the masters of this palace, have overlooked for 10 millennia?" He led me not to an execution block, but to the chamber of Tribune Exactus. There, 12 tribune prefects sat in a circle of shadow. They didn't look like judges. They looked like keepers of a lighthouse built on the edge of hell. They told me the truth that is kept even from the rest of the custodes. Every 1,000 years, one of us is allowed to find the way down.
One of us is chosen to see the dual nature of the Father. It is a trial, a way to cull the weak and find those who can carry the burden of the great change without losing their minds. The others who saw, what happened to them? I whispered, the cold air of the chamber biting at my skin. Some took their own lives, Valoris replied, stepping into the light. Some vanished into the eye of the Emperor to serve as silent watchers in the dark. But a few became the truth-bearers. They are the ones who prepare the way for the day the throne finally fails. He held out a data slate, its screen flickering with ancient, forbidden codes. Your execution was a formality, Atheon, a test to see if you would recant. You did not. Now you have a choice. You can die today as a heretic, or you can become the 10th. You will leave this world behind. You will become a ghost in the machine, seeding the truth among the high and the powerful, preparing humanity for the moment the Emperor stops being a man and starts being something else, something we cannot yet name. I looked at the slate, then at the golden statues of heroes that lined the room. I realized then that the Imperium isn't a shield, it's a blindfold, and I was being asked to lead the blind through a fire. I reached for the slate, my fingers trembling. The mystery wasn't what was under the palace anymore. The mystery was what would happen to me if I said yes. As my thumb touched the sensor, a sharp electric sting shot up my arm, and for a second I didn't see the chamber. I saw a vision of terror, not as a hive world, but as a blackened cinder, and at its center, a throne made of screaming stars.
The stripping of my armor was a funeral without a body. Piece by piece, the auric plate that had defined my existence for 10 millennia was removed by silent thralls. The weight left me, but in its place came a cold, hollow vulnerability that no gene enhancement could shield. I was no longer a shield captain. I was a ghost. To the rest of my brothers, Atheon had been executed at dawn. To the universe, I had ceased to exist. I was dressed in robes of rough black weave, the color of the eyes of the Emperor, but with a single difference. Pinned to the inside of my collar was a small, twisted silver aquila. One head was a noble bird, the other was a screaming, fanged thing, the mark of the 10th. Valoris led me through the bowels of the palace, avoiding the grand thoroughfares where my unarmored form might be recognized. We reached a landing pad suspended over a mile-deep ventilation shaft. Waiting there was a ship that looked more like a shard of obsidian than a void craft. It was the Whisper of Truth, a vessel that existed on no register, powered by tech heresy and ancient sorcery. "You go to Titan," Valoris said, his voice a low rumble. "The Grey Knights keep the records of your predecessors. They are the only ones whose souls are tempered enough to hold the truth without shattering. Learn what they have to teach. Then you will begin your work." He didn't offer a hand. There were no oaths of brotherhood left. I boarded the ship alone. As the airlock hissed shut, I watched Terra dwindle in the viewport. The throne world, my only home since the Unification Wars, became a speck of golden dust in the black. I felt a sudden, sharp pang of terror. For 10,000 years, I had been part of a collective, a golden wall. Now, I was a single stone cast into the void. The journey to Saturn's moon was a blur of silence. The crew were servitors, mind-wiped and tongueless. On the third day, I was met in the ship's cramped sanctum by a figure that made even my enhanced blood run cold. He was a custodian, but his skin was like parchment stretched over bone, and his eyes were milky with cataracts. He looked ancient beyond belief, far older than any of us should be. "I am Dionysian, the 9th. I have waited 300 years for you, Atheon." The cycle is speeding up. The Emperor's human half is receding. He led me to a central console where a single data crystal pulsed with a sickly, rhythmic light. This was the Codex Obscuros, the collective memory of the 9 truth-bearers who had preceded me. Dionysian gestured for me to touch it. When I did, it wasn't a data transfer. It was a psychic assault. I saw the Emperor through the eyes of the first truth-bearer, Constantine Valdor. In his time, the Father was still mostly a man, the golden light a thin veil. Then I saw him through the others. Millennium by millennium, the darkness grew. The monster side, the warp entity, was devouring the king. I saw the age of apostasy, not as a political struggle, but as a moment where the Emperor almost hatched, nearly tearing Terra apart. Then came the final vision, the one saved for the 10th. It was a countdown, not in years, but in heartbeats. The Golden Throne wasn't failing because of age, it was failing because the occupant was pushing from the inside. The machinery was no longer sustaining him, it was restraining him. "The Grey Knights believe we have time," Dionysian said, a coughing, a dry, rattling sound. "They think the transformation will take another century, but they are wrong. They look at the machine, we look at the man. Look again, Atheon. Look at the psychic bleed." I closed my eyes and reached into the warp shadow of the crystal. I didn't see 100 years. I saw a date, etched in fire against the backdrop of the Astronomicon's fading light. It was a date only a few years from now. But that wasn't the mystery. The mystery was the faces I saw in the prophecy. They weren't just high lords or inquisitors. I saw a young girl on a backwater hive world, a traitor captain in the Eye of Terror, and a nameless scribe in the archives of Mars. All of them were connected by a single golden thread. "Who are they?" I asked, my voice trembling. "They are the catalysts," Dionysian replied, his eyes suddenly clear and terrifying. "The Emperor isn't just transforming himself, he is choosing his new apostles. And your first job, 10th, is to find the girl, before the other side of him finds her first." As he spoke, the ship shuddered. It wasn't being attacked. The warp around Titan was screaming. I looked out the viewport and saw a rift opening, not a purple tear of chaos, but a golden crack in reality. A hand, miles long and made of pure, searing light, reached out from the void towards Titan's surface.
Ocularis Prime was a world of rust and perpetual twilight, a cog in the machine of the Segmentum Solar that ground millions of souls into industrial dust. But as the whisper of truth broke orbit, I saw that the twilight had been replaced by a terrifying, artificial noon. From the void, the hive world looked like a rotting fruit being consumed by a golden mold. This was the radiance, the first leak of the Emperor's unchained essence, and it was beautiful in the way a wildfire is beautiful to the forest it consumes. I descended to the surface not as a god of war, but as a beggar. My gene-enhanced frame, once encased in the finest auric plate, was now hidden beneath layers of tattered slate-gray rags. Without my armor, the air of the hive felt abrasive, the gravity more insistent. I felt naked, not because of a lack of clothing, but because I no longer had the Emperor's public blessing to shield me. I was a secret, and secrets are fragile things. The golden fever had taken hold of the lower spires. I walked through the hab blocks of the manufacturum districts and saw the grace firsthand. It was a massacre of light. I found a group of factory workers huddled in a chapel. They hadn't been killed by demons or rebels. They had been turned into statues of translucent, amber-like salt. Their faces were locked in expressions of ecstatic agony, their eyes replaced by solid spheres of gold. They had looked upon the radiance, and their mortal shells had simply given up, unable to contain the sheer pressure of a god's proximity.
Is this the salvation we promised? I whispered to the twisted Aquila hidden in my robes. The pin felt hot against my chest, a rhythmic pulsing that guided me deeper into the industrial sumps. I found the girl, Ilara, in the ruins of a collapsed Promethium refinery. She was no more than 10 years old, a frail thing with hair the color of ash. She sat in the center of a circle of dead, scorched corpses, sisters of silence. My heart nearly stopped. The sisters were blanks, souls without a warp presence, designed to nullify psychic power. For them to be dead, to be burnt to cinders by mere proximity to a child, meant the power Ilara held didn't just come from the warp, it came from something that the warp itself feared. Atheon, she said, her voice small but echoing with the same subsonic thrum as the golden throne. She didn't look at me, she looked through me, at the golden threads of fate I was now forced to pull. "How do you know my name, child?" I asked, keeping my hand away from the concealed power blade at my hip. "The Golden Man told me," she whispered, standing up. As she moved, the shadows behind her didn't follow the flickering lights of the refinery. They moved independently, twisting into the shape of many-winged, fanged horrors, the other side of the father I had seen in the sarcophagus. "The transformation is not just in him, Atheon," the girl said, her eyes suddenly turning into voids of golden light. "It is in everyone. I am the first of the new flock, but every flock needs a slaughter." She reached out and touched my forehead. My mind exploded. I didn't see a century of war. I saw the golden throne cracking. I saw the great rift of the galaxy being sucked into Terra like air into a vacuum. And I saw myself standing over the Emperor's true form, holding a blade of my own shattered faith. "The mystery isn't why I was chosen, Atheon," the girl's voice rang in my skull as the refinery began to melt around us. "The mystery is why you haven't realized you're not the hunter, you're the bait."
The cycle has returned to its beginning. I am back in the cold, black cell where this confession started. The quill is nearly dry, and the candle flickers against the encroaching gray of the morning. They say that before a custodian dies, he sees the totality of his service. I do not see my victories. I do not see the golden walls of the palace. I see the face of the girl, Ilara, as I carried her back through the secret ways, into the very bowels of the Sanctum Imperialis. I thought I was saving her. I thought I was the secret protagonist of a grand design to preserve humanity's future. How arrogant, how human of me. When we reached the matte black door at level 66, it didn't just hiss open, it shrieked. The chamber beyond was no longer a cathedral of light, it was a slaughterhouse of souls. The 9 truth-bearers who had preceded me were there. They weren't sitting in council. They were fused into the walls, their bodies stretched like wet parchment, their golden blood feeding the obsidian sarcophagus through silver tubes. They weren't keepers of the truth. They were the fuel. "The 10th," they whispered in a discordant, wet chorus. "The one who brings the spark." I looked at Ilara. She wasn't afraid. She walked toward the sarcophagus with the gait of a queen returning to her throne. As she touched the obsidian surface, the radiance I had seen on Oculus Prime erupted. But it wasn't golden. It was a bruised, rotting violet, shot through with veins of screaming white. The figure inside the sarcophagus rose. The dual-natured emperor, the perfect face, was gone now, sloughed away like dead skin. What remained was the Shadow Man, the writhing, muscular horror of the warp, wearing the emperor's crown.
And as it looked at me, I realized the final, most bitter truth of all. I was the bait. The Emperor's human half, the part that loved us, the part that dreamt of a secular, rational empire, had been trying to die for 10 millennia. It was the only thing holding back the God thing, the warp entity that the faith of quadrillions had created. My mission as a truth-bearer wasn't to prepare humanity for the great change. It was to find the catalysts, the psychic anchors like Ilara, and bring them here to feed the entity so it could finally devour the last of the man. You did well, Atheon. The voice spoke, and the sound was 1,000 blades twisting in my mind. You brought the key to the lock. The man is almost gone. Soon there will only be the God. And a God does not need a shield. A God needs a void. I tried to draw my blade. I tried to kill the girl, to stop the fusion, to save the dying embers of my father's humanity. But my own gene seed betrayed me. My body, designed to obey him, froze. I could only watch as Ilara was absorbed into the mass of shifting, demonic flesh. I watched as the golden light of the astronomicon above turned a sickly, necrotic purple. The Captain General didn't arrest me because I was a heretic. He arrested me because my job was finished. I had led the shadow to the heart of the throne. I had played my part in the deity of my own father. Now, the door to my cell is grinding open. The light of dawn is spilling in, but it is not the sun. It is a cold, piercing radiance that tastes of salt and ash. I hear the heavy, rhythmic thud of auric boots, but they are not walking on the floor. They are walking on the air, their footsteps echoing in the warp. The executioner enters. He wears the armor of a custodian, but he has no face, only a swirling vortex of golden fire where a head should be. He doesn't carry a guardian spear. He carries a scythe made of frozen prayers. The 10th is recorded. The executioner says, his voice the sound of a universe breaking. The cycle is complete. The king is dead. Long live the horror. I look at the parchment one last time. I leave you with this, whoever finds this. The golden throne did not fail. It worked perfectly. It was never a life support machine. It was an incubator. And the thing that just hatched is not our father. I hear a sound coming from the sanctum above. It is not a scream, it is a laughter, a deep, resonant laughter that is being echoed by every soul in the Imperium, though they do not know why they are laughing. My executioner raises his scythe. The riddle is this: if the light is what kills you, what do you find in the dark? The blade descends.